3 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. We do not have a topic nor a presentation today, and I'm interested to see have we gotten to the point where we don't necessarily need these calls every week. This call is for you, for those of you CEOs or program leaders who are trying to navigate this still very difficult, challenging time, but perhaps we are getting close to the end of needing this. We will do it as long as our members need it. So looking for you all who are on the call to open it up, raise your hand, or just jump in, ask your questions. What topics would you like to talk about? Terry.
See
Oh,
that?
no.
I learned how to use that raise my hand icon. I'm so happy. I'm so impressed with myself. The things we've learned that you never thought, you would have never thought a year ago you would have to know, or
That's
you
right.
would learn. Zoom meant something totally different to me just a few months ago.
Yeah,
and I'm sure
same here.
to all of you as well. So my question is, we in Binghamton will be segueing back into doing direct care. We're not currently providing care directly. We're providing as much as possible remotely, utilizing platforms like Zoom and video chat, iPhones, instant messaging. So, but now that we're segueing into direct care, I'm wondering if anyone has any ideas for me, or I mean, I've written up a protocol, but it's kind of difficult. Do you send people in full PPE regalia, or do we, do you really need to have booties and scrubs? There are just so many unknowns. Do you ask consumers if you can take their temperature before you give services? Do you make everyone in the house wear masks, or just those within the vicinity? So if anybody can share some experiences they've had, if they have been providing services, or if they are about to provide services, I, for one, would truly appreciate that.
That's great, Terry. So who among you is already venturing out, providing home services, perhaps home-based services, or are having clients in, or have a plan to do so that you would like to share, would like to hear from you, please? Nobody? Sarah.
I can share. So we just, we started our individual services for kids back in the building this week. It was a little bit of a rocky start because we had a tropical storm on Monday, so we had to cancel.
Where are you, Sarah?
I'm in New Orleans. I'm at Lighthouse.
Oh my goodness. Oh, wow.
And then we sort of had part 2 of a tropical storm yesterday, but on Tuesday and today, it's been going well. And so we are transporting kids 2 at a time is sort of like the max in our van. And we have an awesome van driver who's doing temperature checks for the kids. We have a touchless thermometer that he just has with him in the van, along with, hand sanitizer and gloves and masks. We do require masks in the van. And then, so in addition to the temperature check, he'll do just a 2-question screener, asking parents, any exposure, any symptoms, are pretty much the 2 questions. And then they're all good. They come and they're one-on-one with a TVI, and we're just doing 2-hour blocks. And in that time, kids, to the best of their ability, keep a mask on. Providers keep a mask on. If there's hand over hand support, they have access to a lot of gloves, lots of hand sanitizer, lots of Lysol wipes. Trying to think what else, but we've definitely had more people in the building, but it's generally masks if you're closer than 6 feet from someone. Otherwise, it's okay. Just sort of like have it on hand. And if you're going into a common area, just like don't leave your space without one, kind of, just in case you need to put it on. I think those are most of the highlights.
Good, thank you. Appreciate that. Who else? Anybody else engaging beyond virtual contact with clients yet?
So this is Cindy Miller in San Antonio. Hi guys.
Hi.
I also want to introduce you to Christy Philhart. She's our TBI, and so I'm really excited that she could join us today and join our group.
Great.
So we've been doing everything virtually. I kind of talked about that, I guess, last week at our meeting, and I sent you the link for our Eventbrite. And I've had a couple of conversations in between about how that's been going. It's going really, really well. And we've been kind of planning for how we're going to come back. We're watching what our school districts are doing. But the other thing is that we're watching our numbers. And right now, as of this week, Texas has been announced to be one of the rising COVID numbers in the country. Mm-hmm. And so we were thinking that we would come back to in-person at the end of July, beginning of August. But yesterday, my director and I had a conversation, and we decided that due to the rising numbers, we're actually going to wait. But we have put together a plan. And so what we're doing is we're taking what is the maximum number of student seating in our classrooms. And so how many kids do we typically have? And then we're going to break that down, and we are only going to offer spots for about 25%. I don't even think we're going to bump up to the 50%. I think we're going to start at 25%. We're going to order the plexi dividers. Mm-hmm. So where we have long rectangular tables, we'll put a plexi divider down the center, and then we will have a kid on each corner on each end. So okay. The kids are on opposite corners with the plexi in between them, and keep that distance as well as the barrier. We plan to require masks. Most of our kids are older, so we don't have those little bitty kids here without parent supervision. So we have older kids that are capable of wearing a mask. All of our staff will be masked. And then we're talking about where we usually do everything kind of in one classroom with a whole bunch of kids. We'll break all of our lessons down. So we have smaller groups of kids in separate rooms, and we'll take a break from one room and the kids can rotate activities. So let's say that they're in our transition to work classroom and they leave there and they go into the tech room. But before they go into the tech room, everything will get wiped down and disinfected. And when the kids that are in the second classroom go into the transition classroom, that room will be wiped down and disinfected. So that we're kind of in a constant circle of moving from classroom to classroom and for different lessons so that we can do all of our programs with a larger number of kids, but without having them all together at one time in one place. Does that make sense?
No, it does.
So kind of a rotation with lots and lots and lots of Lysol.
Is that one of the products you guys make?
It is not, and it is very, very hard to find. Yeah. So we don't. We do our primary manufacturing is for the military, and then when this started, we added a manufacturing line for PPE for masks, and then we also do office supplies.
Okay. Yeah. Well, those were good suggestions. Anybody else have some practical, either what you're planning or are already doing? Dina, thank you.
So we're launching face-to-face services next week. Both we do community mobility, so for O&M services, but also for on-campus limited face-to-face. So I think next week we have one student coming every morning for technology training, and then we have another individual coming for some limited sort of independent living skills. So first, all our staff had to sign a COVID information form, identifying whether they've had it, were tested for it, or exposed to it. And then we created a similar form for our clients to sign. And then we have 2 other documents we're requiring the clients to sign. One indicating they understand everything we are doing to protect them with PPE and social distancing, and a second one saying they will abide by using PPE as directed and following social distancing guidelines. So that was from our lawyers on the board, those. And then of course we've provided staff with PPE materials. So for example, next week, the technology instructor came in today to set up her classroom to do the social distancing of 6 feet with the student and make sure she had all her supplies ready as well. I think most of our mobility staff are planning mostly outdoor lessons with clients. Of course, we can't access any housing facilities anyway, because you're not allowed to go in. So most of the people they're working with are clients they've worked with before, that they know live in their own home, checking about health conditions, and doing lessons with them outside or limited indoor. And I think if they go indoor, they're asking the other family members, unless they're behind a closed door, also have to wear masks as well. So, and we're doing remote instruction. We are not doing a residential program till the fall at the earliest, and we're maybe going to do some day services. So Sarah, it was nice to hear about how you kind of started with kids, thinking the same thing, because we will have to transport some of the students. But we're still on the fence about temperature checks. And people keep asking whether we will require testing, COVID testing. And right now we are not, but I think that could change in the future. And if it becomes, I think also people are starting just to go get tested themselves, because they can't. I mean, everywhere is kind of different about whether you can or can't get tested, but you could be negative today and positive 3 days later. So
That's right. It's crazy. Even with the temperature checking, and a lot of organizations are doing that, that doesn't mean you don't have it.
Right.
But I guess it's just one way to feel better.
It's one way to screen people out if they do have a temperature,
right.
but that's all it does.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Lee, the temperature checking actually is really for the asymptomatic people. That's why it's being used. It's really, if you've got the symptoms, you're not going to be expected to go in or to report for work or to be seen as a client. But if you're asymptomatic, it's a way to catch the asymptomatic people. I think
it's one way, but you can still have it and not have an elevated temperature. So it doesn't catch everybody. Yeah.
Another safeguard.
Another safeguard. That's right. Yeah. So who else? Who else has some plans? Or I do believe, Terry, that we have some of these plans from other organizations in that collective of information that you could look at too. Especially the Ability One related organizations, almost all of them have remained open with staff coming into the building throughout this. And so I think they have lessons learned and some tips that you can take. It's not vision rehabilitation. And, I think we were just talking with some folks from the dog guide schools, and how do you train people on dog guides and maintain the physical distancing and even wearing masks. I think it's tough for people who are blind and may also have some hearing difficulties when their instructors are masked. But there's all kinds of evidence to show that those masks really make a difference. So you don't want to let your guard down, in my humble opinion. Who else has something they'd like to share? Or we can move to a different topic if you have another question. I'll just throw in a little caution, because I heard a rumor that there is at least one organization who is having their folks come back to work and not providing PPE for their staff, and not good. Not good. Please, if you need help, getting PPE, let me know. I'll help you find where you can get that PPE. Don't ask your staff to come back without providing that.
Lee, I just wanted, this is Diane Nelson at VIPS. I just wanted to add one other thing. Recently, I've heard from local experts and one of the ophthalmologists on our board that additionally wearing eyeglasses, whether they're safety glasses or your vision glasses, but wearing eyeglasses is also a really successful barrier to illness.
Yeah.
So to protect the eyes is another pathway, not just the nose and the mouth.
Oh, totally agree. If you don't wear eyeglasses, shields or the other eye, I forget what they're called, but yeah, absolutely important.
And she said if you do wear contacts, you should be wearing eyeglasses right now. You should
That's
not
right.
be turned.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I've heard that as well. Yeah. Good. What else? What's keeping you up at night?
We,
Mm-hmm.
I think I asked this last week, but I'm going to kind of raise it again. So if for agencies who are doing remote instruction, have you had any challenges in getting either your state that funds you to approve the funding, or other out of state or other states to approve remote funding for services?
Again, it's Diane Nelson with VIPS, and at first we did. We weren't being paid. We immediately began providing what we call virtual home visits early in March, and the state of Kentucky did not embrace that as a reimbursable service, but we were able to tell our story loudly enough to those at the Cabinet for Health and Human Services, and so now. So initially they agreed to pay us, but at a reduced rate. So we went from 89 an hour to 65 an hour.
Wow.
Just last week, they changed that, and they're going to retroactively increase it another $13. So
Wow.
we'll be closer. We'll be at 78. We won't be at 89, but we'll be closer to where we were. So squeaky wheel, squeaky wheel. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I just heard today from one of our out of states that we do a lot of work with that they're not funding out of state remote services. So it's interesting to me that they're kind of all relooking at this remote, what they're going to pay for, who they're going to pay, et cetera. So, we put programs out there, and it should be client choice to get services. And you would think if you're an approved vendor, but I do see some of the states, it's like you're approved for face-to-face or residential, but no thanks, you're not approved for remote, and we're not interested. I'm starting to see some of that. And I think some of it might be driven by budgets for next year.
Sorry, I didn't see what was going on in chat or your hand raised there. I'm still figuring out how to use this too. But we seem to be a very civilized group today, so you're welcome to just unmute yourself and talk.
I'd say that what we're finding here as we prepare to reopen is that we're inundated. At first, I thought all the resources were really helpful, but as we write our safety plan and reopen playbook, I feel like we're a bit stressed out by the wide variety of approaches, and we have to cherry pick and what makes the most sense for our organization. And I guess it causes some stress. It's causing me some stress. So when you ask what keeps me up at night, I guess I'm living what my husband, the optometrist, lived a month ago as he tried to prepare too, except that I'm funded in a way that requires policies, board approvals, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And he's facing other things like what you just mentioned in terms of virtual. The physicians in Ontario have been given a code for virtual delivery, and many are opting for like 30% virtual. It's just been much easier for them, and it's probably going to stay that way forever. Like, it's great for patients too.
Yeah.
But the code, optometry hasn't been given a similar code for all the consultation they could do, similar to what we might be doing, for example, in low vision, that we can do before having to see the person in person. But anyway, long story short, I think that's one of the things that maybe some other people are facing too. So just put it out there, like we've got so much in front of us, and my colleague is on this call too, listening in just because she's doing the writing for me. It's hard. There's just so many choices that have to be made. And I think to help with that, we have to just get something down in writing, start to see people and see how that goes. And I've decided to adopt his approach, which was a soft opening before like not naming a date, but just inviting certain clients that we know need to see us in and working through all the things. And then as we get more comfortable, being able to do it more rather than trying to have a formal, okay, the doors are open approach.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And now I think that is exactly why this whole period has been such a challenge for leaders, is there is no clear guidance. And there are very different approaches. And yeah, some states pay for things, others don't, even within our field. So it is very challenging. Not knowing is, I think, the biggest source of stress for all of us through this.
Yeah, we're in a slightly more fortunate position in that we do get some public health guidance about what's allowed, but we've always been an essential service, so we've never truly been closed.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say open closed, they're talking about like essential, non-essential, emergency, non-emergency, but still, you have to pick what you feel makes the most sense without feeling like you're in overkill mode. Like, do I need full PPE to go into someone's house? And are we packing out everything we take in? And are we providing garbage bags for jackets? And that's where we're at right now. I think we are, but I just, it's like, have I thought of everything? Probably not.
So what else?
Is anybody anticipating staff changes over the next couple of months? I mean, as you know, us not being able to run our residential program, especially over the summer, we're looking at some kind of changes. Sorry, and I'm from outside Boston, from the Carroll Center. So
yeah, and Deborah is from Canada. Somebody was asking, I think Cindy. Yeah, Deborah's in Canada, so she has a whole different, well, maybe not completely different, but a little different. Usually a lot better. So anybody willing to talk about that? It's a scary subject, but
well,
it's one I think we'll have to face.
In Louisville again, I know one of the things we're getting ready to do is pass our budget for 2020, 2021. And since we're so unsure, 75% of our budget comes outside of fee services.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of that big number that you're having to raise year in and year out, you're also thinking, where are there areas that we could cut if and when we don't get that income?
Sure.
And so we will be making one or two staff changes and stretching out our team to do a little bit more and eliminating a position. So, but it was also, and again, I always try and find the bright light. It was also an opportunity to break the organization and say, what can we do better and more efficiently and build it back better? So, we're all strapped for resources, but that's how we're going to deal with it.
Thank you. What else? Yeah, Cindy, I'm just going to comment out loud that, yeah, that's one of the hallmarks of this field is everybody does it differently. You have seen one lighthouse, you have seen one lighthouse. I think it would be nice if we I see that we are moving together in terms of sharing, and I think we could benefit from at least best practices, if not more standards. But there are a lot of different ways to do things. Deborah.
Oh, you saw me come back on. I was just going to answer. Yeah, we are always assessing we have very small staff, but we are actually, I just got the call from my local member of parliament to tell me that I got my funding for a program called Canada Summer Jobs. They always hand it to their MPs because they want them to feel really good that they get to call us. And I got more money than I asked for 2 positions. But I'm actually going to retain at least one and probably both of those positions after the funding is over, by redeploying money elsewhere. So yes, we're looking at staffing changes, but on the positive side, we're going to hire a virtual, an actual, I hate the word virtual, a remote group activity coordinator, because we want to keep the remote group activity going through COVID, and then I hope after that as well. And I just can't manage it myself anymore. So we got funded for that, and he will be maybe an activation coordinator grad, which is a community college level program, or therapeutic recreation, or programming of some kind. And then we want to start, because we want to start some music education. We want to be able to do more for adult, on the edutainment space. And Zoom just lends itself for that. And then the other one is an office assistant. So that's as far as we've gotten. And we redeployed some staff during this time, which is also a really good solution rather than furloughing people or laying them off. So we redeployed them to a telehealth support network. And I've just been collecting staff input for my year-end report for the AGM, and I'm going to just use everything they're telling me that they think we achieved. And one of them was the establishment of that wellness team. It's been really good for the clients. They love talking to us on a regular basis. So the other thing we're going to do is, as we deploy those staff back to their regular jobs, we will bring volunteers in to support that wellness team to talk to people, and we'll train them.
Interesting. Very good. One of our first calls with this group was focused on the topic of orientation and mobility, particularly being delivered remotely. So it's been weeks since we first brought that up, and time that perhaps some of you have had actual experience with that. Anybody care to share how, if you've been delivering orientation mobility services, how you're doing it and how it's going?
It's me, Cindy, again.
Hi, Cindy.
So our O&M team has been doing some telehealth and Zoom as they can, but of course O&M is hard to do that because it's a hands-on service by its nature. But they have been doing that. They've been doing some instructional videos, and we post those up on our pages, especially on our kids' Facebook groups, so that parents can see the video and help their kids with those cane skills. And one of our O&Ms has done these little films where she's like out in front of her house, and she'll say, okay, when you're working with your kids, be sure that they're doing this and this and this and this, and keep in mind these things for safety. And so that's not a one-on-one service, but it does provide some support for our kids that are at home. And then they've been reaching out to the seniors and really answering questions and making suggestions and doing what they can do in a distance format like this. And then some clients, it's just not sufficient, and so they're just on hold until they can see them face to face.
Thank you for sharing, Cindy. So anybody else want to share or have a different question you'd like to ask, or suggest a different topic for us to discuss?
I think this is Sarah again from Lighthouse, Louisiana in New Orleans. I think, and this might be too specific to me and not appropriate for the group, but I think now that we're sort of back and see a way to do services on a small level, I'm looking ahead, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but for an uptick and sort of the resurgence of this, the second wave of COVID, and just trying to take the lessons learned, like distill those, and then put things in place for, you know, I manage a team of 3 TVIs who go into schools to provide services, and just looking ahead as schools don't know what the fall is going to look like. We don't know if it's going to be virtual starting out or go back to that. And so again, I think, you know, Lee, what you said earlier really resonated with me of like, we're just so tired of not knowing. It's exhausting not knowing, but also definitely seeing the need to plan ahead. It's hard. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Cavernous ambiguity. You can, you know, if there's something outside of direct services that you want to talk about, we can do it. We are no rules here. This is your time. I want you to take advantage of having these other folks, your colleagues, who are going through many of the same things you are, thinking about the same things. Pick their brains, get some suggestions, some ideas.
I did have a private question come in asking about transitioning fundraising events to a virtual format, whether that be a gala, you know, or what was traditionally a golfing event. You know, do you guys have any, how are you transitioning your fundraising events to a virtual format?
Would you mind sharing, Diane?
I will be happy to share. So VIPS just hosted their annual gala, which last year we raised $110,000. It's a night of dinner and a silent auction, live auction, and an appeal. This year, with only 3 weeks before the event, almost 4 weeks before the event, we decided to go virtual. And we hosted everything online. We used a telephone bidding system called ClickBid for opening up our silent auction a week before our event. We reached out to networks everywhere, so industry, board members, parents, family members, educators, the whole depth and breadth of the network of VIPs to say, we're going to do this, we're going to give it a shot. I'll tell you, immediately we got feedback from some of our larger donors and foundations to say, we applaud the courage that it took to not just cancel or delay when everybody else is going to be delaying, but to take the step to move forward and see it in a different light. I will tell you the end result before I get through the middle part, but we were able to raise almost $20,000 more than we did last year, $18,500 more than last year, and had more people participate or sign on than, you know, the barrier of physical presence was eliminated. The barrier of limitation of space at our boat club where we hosted every year was eliminated. And prior to the event happening, we already had 296, I think, or 298 registrants for the event that were bidding on silent auction. We did a silent auction. We did a Disney raffle. So I don't know, all of you nonprofits on there, I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're a nonprofit and your team members do community work, our team members last year manned the phone bank at the Public Media Radiothon. then you apply to Disney for free hopper passes and show them that you're a nonprofit doing profitable work outside of your own realm. And they give you 5 free hopper passes. They'll do that twice a year. So twice a year we raffle off 5 Disney hopper passes. And that brings in some substantial money. We do $25 a ticket. So then we have what we call a bourbon pull, and we're from Kentucky, so of course bourbon has to be involved. And we had 50 different bottles of bourbon ranging in value from $28 to as much as $200 in this pool of 50 bottles. And through random double draw, you could buy a chance to win to get a bottle of bourbon, and hopefully you get some of the higher end bourbon. That sold out in 48 minutes online. Next year, we're thinking we're going to do 100 bottles at $100 a bottle and throw some even higher end bottles out there. So the way that it happened, so the bidding was online all week, the raffles were online, the bourbon pool was online. And then that Saturday at 7:30 p.m., we gathered via Zoom, and we had some pre-recorded messages where our agency's 35 years old, so our founder had a 35th anniversary message, why we even came to exist in Kentucky and now Indiana. And then I had a pre-recorded message welcoming our crowd and thanking them for joining and sponsoring, and thanking our individual sponsors. And then the auctioneer joined us virtually and started the live auction, which was 6 different packages. And that portion of the event raised a little bit more than the live portion in person last year. So, and we had fewer packages than we did the year before. We had 2 fewer packages and raised a little bit more. The next portion was after the live auction, we had a pre-recorded message from a family who profiled their journey and then went into the live appeal. And immediately in the live appeal, I got a text message on my phone from a donor who said, kick it off with $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Ultimately, it's $5,000 more than he gave last year. Well, actually, $10,000 more than he gave last year, but when he wrote his check after last year's event, he bumped it $5,000. So that kind of set the tone for the giving.
Wow. Give me goosebumps.
Like, wow. So we ended up raising $70,000 just in the fund division pledges and in gifts. The shipping of the silent auction and live auction packages has actually been really seamless. People are picking things up, or a lot of things were bought in Indiana and Michigan, or some things, because we have an office in Indianapolis. So one of our team members from Indianapolis met one of our team members from Louisville halfway, and they switched things. We've had donations come in after the fact, just people that meant to join that didn't join. Here's a little donation to help you. So ultimately we netted $130,000.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, I just am in awe of how it all came together. And if anyone has any, I've already talked to 6 different nonprofits now who have asked to share numbers and expense. Our expenses were nominal. We paid our auctioneer about $4,000, which really probably should have been more like $2,500. But you do what you do. Right. And he was unemployed too at the time, right? Mm-hmm. Then our ClickBid app on the phone, that's only $1,200 for that whole system, and it's the checkout. It's the one that sends out the thank yous. It's all the back house work too. So that was a very reasonable investment. We ended up sending all of our sponsors and table host, which was another key. 3 of our board members, one had a virtual table of 10 couple or 5 couples. One had a cocktail party at their house for 10 couples or 5 couples, 10 people. And then our one of our other nonconformists had 34 people over for his big event. But we let him borrow our tables and chairs from VIPs and our linens, and my family has a 20 by 20 tent, and he threw it all together, and we threw it, put it all up. So we sent every single one of those people a charcuterie tray with a bottle of wine, And it was delivered to their home like an hour or two before the event. It cost us $50, but the impact of those little charcuterie trays at the to the sponsors and the table host was well received. And then so that was a little bit of an expense, not much. And really, other than the fees for using credit cards, some people chose to use to send checks. So you have an option. You register ClickBid and you put your credit card number in, but you could contact our controller and say, hey, don't check me out when it's all ready, ready to be done. I'll send you a check to avoid your fees and their fees.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Or people checked out and paid the fees.
Paid the fee, yeah.
Option. So it was the whole depth and breadth of all of that. But if anyone had any specific questions, I'll be glad to answer it. It just, I have to say we had 3 different hiccups. One was the computer we were showing the live videos for the 30 minutes before the event began. We were running our promo video and a slideshow of past events. Well, the young staff member who was downloaded them on her brand new home laptop, which was a Mac, and then brought it to the office, but we had no way of hardwiring it to our internet.
Oh boy.
Because the connections were different.
Yeah.
So it slowed things down, but we learned that lesson really quickly and downloaded them, even though the files were really big, to a different computer, and that started to work. The second thing is we've used ClickBid for the last 3 years, and we forgot to change the close time of our silent auction. So instead of closing at 10, it closed at 8. So we had to get that opened real quickly. And then the third thing is just having someone sitting and watching the chat feature and the mute feature, as Ben is doing for you all, so that you're not hearing someone say, honey, fix me another drink, or, Yeah. So we were having to mute people, and but we as a team kind of gathered social distance together at VIPS while all this was going on, and it was really, the energy was so exciting, and there was some banter back and forth from a few big donors who unmuted themselves to egg everybody on, or a board member who threw out commentary on her condo that she donated. So there was a lot of great energy.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are some things, those last few things you mentioned, that would be really hard to do in an actual setting, but so simple in a virtual. So,
and the other thing we've heard is feedback after the fact is a lot of these people, 2 of our largest donors don't come to our events because they don't want to get dressed up and go to yet another thing on the weekend. They just want to, kick back and relax. We heard from them. We heard from some of the guests at my one rogue board member's house who said, we'll never go back now because we want to sit in the backyard and have a cigar and smoke a cigar and have a drink and wear shorts.
Yeah.
So we just lost probably maybe 25% of our audience to the casual 1 hour commitment of an online event. So, I mean, we're going to look at that. We may not go back to a face-to-face event, or maybe it's a hybrid, who knows?
Yeah.
And I just want to add, at the Carroll Center, we have a walk every year, usually the end of April. So we are virtual right now. So last year, I think we had like 350 people at the walk and raised $180,000. So our goal for our virtual walk is 100,000, and our virtual walk formal event with speakers and all that stuff is not till the end of June, and we've already raised $90,000.
Wow, that's
so
terrific.
we will go over our goal, and I agree. I'm finding people very generous right now. I've heard from people who say, well, I'm not driving my car and I'm not dressing up, so I'm not spending money at the dry cleaner, and I'm not buying coffee and lunch every day, so I'm saving so much money that I'm happy to donate it to agencies and organizations. So I think people are feeling generosity and feel like they're saving money just by being home if they're still working.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I think if you're in a capacity, you have already collected items for an auction. I feel like there's a lot of pent up shopping desire. Hi, Deborah.
Hi, Lee. So I'd like to ask what, if anything, people are doing in the Black Lives Matter space during this time. What kind of response people have planned for their communities and the community at large. I've been trying to wrap my head around a message for our newsletter tomorrow. We do one weekly, and I'm taking my time because it's so hard. But, you know, probably over 60% of our clients are from minority groups and people of color. So but it's more than that, of course, and we also have staff, obviously. Since I'm not Black and I have a lot to learn, I just wondered if there were people on here who have either done something already or have given any thought to what you might be doing in your agencies.
Thank you for bringing that up, Deborah. And I'll just slip in, we put out our message yesterday in our newsletter, and we are sincerely focusing on what kind of conversations. We may have some virtual sessions focusing on that. We'd like to collect expertise and experience that any of you have had in terms of implementing programming that addresses equity, diversion, inclusion. And we will definitely be talking about this in our fall conference, which we have not made the final decision yet, but it looks like it's probably going to be virtual too. But it is really important for us. And if I could get on the soapbox just for a moment, our team wrote that message together. So it was in my voice and it reflected some of my experience, but we all collaborated on that message. And it's no secret that our field is not diverse. Our clients are, but our staff and our leadership are not. And so I think it does take extra effort for us all to be sure that we understand our biases and we work to overcome those. So I encourage you to take a look at that, and it's hard. I mean, I'm a woman of white privilege. I have never experienced what so many people have had to experience just by the fact of their birth. And because I think the basis of almost everything we do in this field is about equity, diversion, and diversity and inclusion, right? We want people who are blind and low vision to have the same opportunities and feel as safe and as free and independent to do things that people who are sighted can do. But there's a lot of other barriers beyond what we tend to focus on in our programs that keeps people from doing that. So I think the more we can talk about it and the more we can accept that, and you know, we don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but I think together we can figure this out. And I know some of our members have done a lot more work on this than others, and hope that you will share your consultants, your plans, what we can do together to try to help each other do a better job on this. Who else would like to share on that subject? Have there been any other messages from your organizations? I know a lot of the national organizations here have. Kirk Adams put out a beautiful message at AFB. ACB put out a solidarity statement from their entire board, which I thought was very nice. I think AER just put out a message today.
This is Sarah again in New Orleans. I just want to say thanks to Deborah for asking the question, and thanks to Lee for addressing it. I saw it in the newsletter, and you know, I am just a director of a department, and so, you know, for me it was, you know, I manage a team that has Black employees on it, and it was important for me to recognize that as a white woman, can't understand, you know, as you were saying, like can't understand the impact. Like, you know, this is something I've been working on for years, sort of unpacking my white privilege and learning to be anti-racist. And so, you know, this is my first time this year that I've been at the Lighthouse to really lead a team and be in a position of leadership. And I felt, you know, called to, you know, reach out to the team that I manage to check in with them. You know, I care about them a lot as professionals, as people. And then I, you know, just sent, I did that individually, and then I sent out an email to my whole team acknowledging, you know, that what a painful time it is for all of us, and just sort of offering to be here without the expectation of anyone coming to me, but just sort of regardless of what the response is, just felt it was really important to just say that I'm here and also understand if you don't want to talk about it, and also that I remain like committed to the advocacy work that needs to happen. And I think, so, you know, that's sort of how I address it internally for my team. And I think I'm grappling with it. You know, New Orleans is a majority Black city, and it's something, you know, the students that we teach are predominantly Black, and it's something, you know, that I'm continuing to think about. Particularly, I mean, again, it's just the context of it happening during a pandemic when we're all sort of separated just adds like another layer to sort of process. So I'm still working through it, but I want to say thank you and just to offer my perspective.
Well, that was great. Thank you for sharing, Sarah. I mean, humility and acknowledgement are, I think, two of the most important things we can do. It's not the only thing we need to do, but it's a good first step. Anybody else like to share?
For the staff piece, it was a week ago Tuesday that I raised it at the staff meeting. We're a small organization, Balance for Blind Adults, and so that's where we had a conversation. So that was shortly after the George Floyd killing and the protests began. And I've been reading people, you know, everybody's organizational statements that have come from many organizations in all communities, like arts, all within and outside of our organization. So I know I need to write something. I don't want to sound like I'm echoing what other people have written. And I like the idea of the co-writing, Lee, that you brought up, the idea of doing it together. And I also like the idea of something coming from our board rather than, or as well as from me. So these are good ideas. And if anybody has taken any other approaches or started to have these conversations or send messages that clients can read, the newsletter's tomorrow, so I'm going to be writing tonight.
Service on the recall on my Hyundai.
Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jay, are you talking to us? I think he just went off mute by accident. Yeah, thanks, Deborah. Yeah, thank you very much for bringing that up. For some reason, I cannot figure out how to respond to the person. Elizabeth, you asked the question, where's Diane Nelson from? She's with VIPS in Louisville, Kentucky, and their website is vips.org. Diane, do you mind sharing? You're going to get bombarded with emails. Do you mind sharing your email address?
It's dnelson@vips.org. And also we have a Facebook page. So if you wanted to see any of those video messages from our sponsors or the speakers, the videos that we pre-recorded through the generosity of a church who brought in their lighting, camera, and video crew to pre-record our messages, you can see them there as well. So we have a Facebook page, Visually Impaired Preschool Services.
Thank you. Okay, well, any last thoughts? It's 3:54. We can always finish early. Everybody.
Just on the fundraising thing, our major fundraiser is already remote and online, so it won't be difficult for us to stay that way.
Yeah.
I've raised it at the CEO Summit at one of the topic tables, but I'll just quickly say that if you want to learn more about what we do, it's called the Because of Balance campaign, and it was brought to us as an idea from a fund development company that we hired. It was their #1 idea in our books, and it allows for clients to tell their family and friends about this, why balance, why we're great, what we've done for them, and then invite them to donate. It's done entirely through email and social media. So that won't change. If we keep it this year, we may take a break for this year because it's been a tiring year for a lot of people, and come back to it next year. We haven't decided yet. But last year it raised $12,000, which for a small organization with with clients who generally don't have a lot, it doesn't expect anything of them, except they become fundraisers for us. So this year we had 26 who went out to agreed to have their stories told. We did little videos, we put it up on Facebook and Instagram, but the main thing was that they emailed, called, talked to friends and family and told their stories, and then we put their stories up. So I'll put the link up in the chat.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, you can see it on the chat. It's a great idea. It's easy to do, social, using existing resources within the internet.
Yeah, beautiful.
Sorry,
Okay.
and you can use those stories in the future too. You can
That's
put them up
right.
and
I
leave
mean,
them
great
there.
way to fundraise and fundraise at the same time and get people to give you those great testimonies. All good stuff. All right, so there's one question I want to ask of those of you who remain on here. Do you want to do this again next week, or are we getting to the plate? Is it helpful? As long as it's helpful for you, we'll do it. But nobody has extra time, so I've got one thumb up.
Is there a thumbs down button?
Oh, two thumbs up from some of you.
We
Great.
got 3.
All right, well, there's enough of you that still think this is important, so we will continue it. We love talking with you, and more importantly, I love that you're talking with each other. There is, I think, a never-ending wealth of information between you that you can share. So glad it's helpful, and hope you enjoy the rest of your week and have a great weekend, and see you back here next week. Bye, Sharon.
Thank you, guys. Any further
Bye,
questions you have, info@visionservalliance.org. I'll get back to you all as soon as I can.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.